Have you ever had a quiet moment when everything around you suddenly slowed down and you found yourself standing in front of a photograph of someone who has passed away? Maybe it wasn't a traditional altar, but simply a framed picture resting neatly on a shelf, or a photo you held gently in your hand during an unexpected swell of emotion. In that stillness, you looked into a familiar face now living only in memory, and wondered, where are they now? Can they still feel the love I carry for them? The question seems simple, yet it echoes deeply in the hearts of those who have known loss. Some people believe that death is the final period, the moment everything dissolves, as if it never existed. But others believe that death is a doorway, opening into another dimension where life continues in a form our physical eyes cannot see. So what is the truth? From the perspective of the Buddha's teachings, does a person truly disappear after death? Or do they simply leave behind the form we once knew and continue the journey of consciousness into another realm? The Buddha taught that the body we see, touch, and call me is only a small part of our existence. This body is formed by the four elements: earth, water, fire, and air, and one day it must return to them. It has birth and aging, growth and decay. It is impermanent, merely a temporary vehicle we borrow for a single lifetime. But consciousness, the stream of awareness, does not end. It is like flowing water passing through countless shapes and containers, carrying within it impressions from all the lives we have lived, what we have thought, spoken, done, and felt. These impressions are karma, and karma is what guides consciousness into the next state once the physical body ceases. Death is never a complete ending. It is a continuation. One door closes so another can open. Consciousness keeps moving forward, shaped by the causes we ourselves have created. That is why, although we call them the departed, they have not departed from the cycle of existence. They have only stepped out of our sight. Their journey has not paused for a single moment. The absence we feel is not their disappearance. It is only the change in how they now exist. And it is precisely this change that creates pain in our hearts. We grieve because we lose what our senses once recognized. The voice, the warmth, the presence we could touch. When these vanish, it feels as if the whole person is gone. But the essence of their being, their consciousness, continues on, carried by the current of karma. And then we ask ourselves, can they hear me? Do they know that I'm thinking about them? According to Buddhist teachings, the mind has a subtle and profound sensitivity. If the consciousness of the departed has not yet found true peace, if it remains unsettled, weighed down by attachment, confusion, or longing, they can still feel the energy that living beings send toward them, not through ears or eyes, but through the resonance of consciousness, the energy of remembrance, the energy of affection, the energy of prayers. All of these can reach them if the karmic connection between the living and the deceased is still present. This is why the emotions of the living have such a strong impact on those who have passed away. If we cling to sorrow, if we cry excessively, or fall into despair, the heaviness of that energy can hold them back. They cannot move forward while we continue to bind them with our grief. But fortunately, love does not only take the form of tears. Love can also take the form of calmness, mindfulness, and kind actions. When we live kindly, when we act compassionately, when we maintain a clear and gentle heart, that energy becomes a light that can support someone who has gone beyond this world. This is the true meaning of dedication of merit, not elaborate rituals or offerings, but transmitting the wholesome energy generated by our own thoughts, words, and actions to those who have passed. Dedication is the bridge between two realms, where the living and the deceased meet through mindfulness and compassion. However, not everyone can easily receive this energy if their consciousness is clouded by anger, sorrow, or attachment. The light of dedication may have difficulty reaching them, but this does not mean we should stop. Just as water droplets can eventually wear down stone, sincerity can penetrate even the heaviest layers of karmic clouds. So how do we dedicate merit properly, in alignment with the Buddha's teachings? This question is not only for those grieving deeply, it is also a reminder of how we can love and support those who have stepped beyond this life. Dedication of merit in Buddhism is not about ceremonies or formality. Its essence is the act of transferring wholesome energy generated by any good deed, kind intention, or mindful breath to the departed, with a mind that is clear, compassionate, and free of attachment. If our minds are filled with fear, anger, or sorrow, then even if we repeat many prayers, the energy will not be complete. Yet if we calm ourselves, breathe gently, release emotional turmoil, and send a sincere blessing, that alone becomes a stream of merit. A single wholesome action done with purity of heart can become powerful support for the one who has passed on. Dedication is the moment we open a quiet door inside ourselves, allowing compassion to shine outward and touch the place where our loved one now journeys. It is not about holding them back. It is about giving them lightness, clarity, and peace. Compassionate energy naturally flows. It does not require ornate rituals or grand gestures. It requires only truth of heart. Sometimes, a person passes away carrying regret or sudden shock. Their consciousness in that moment may be confused, unsettled, or highly sensitive to the emotional waves of the living. If we cry relentlessly or call their name in anguish, we may unknowingly anchor them to worldly attachment. But if we maintain inner peace and send thoughts of serenity, we become a source of guidance for them. The Buddha taught that the mind of the living, when pure, can illuminate the path for the deceased. This light shines brightest when we let go of the pain pressing heavily on our hearts. When we release with wisdom, our awareness expands, and compassionate energy flows effortlessly, unclouded by suffering. Dedication, therefore, does not only help the departed, it also heals the living. When we offer good energy outward, we free ourselves from guilt, regret, and the endless cycle of if only. Love becomes spacious, no longer draining but strengthening. It becomes a quiet wisdom within us. In the beginning, losing someone can feel overwhelming. But as time passes, if we practice dedication, the pain softens. It does not vanish, it transforms. What once felt like emptiness becomes gratitude and calm. We begin to understand that our loved one continues their journey, and we continue ours with a wiser and more compassionate heart. Eventually, when we look back on the times we prayed softly, breathed mindfully, or performed good deeds in their name, we realize that these practices brought us closer to awakening. Dedication is not only an expression of love for the deceased, it is a spiritual gift for ourselves. When we reach this understanding, we see that birth and death are not a straight line. They are not a final goodbye. They are chapters in a long, unfolding journey. The one who has left no longer appears in the form we once knew, but they remain present in a different way. In the stream of consciousness, in gentle memories, and in every good act we perform on their behalf. Looking deeply into this truth, we understand that dedication is the bridge between two realms, the meeting point of the living and the departed, illuminated by the light of mindfulness. In that moment, the question is no longer, how do I hold on to the one who has passed? But instead becomes, how can I live so well that everything I do becomes a source of light for them? It isn't the number of chants or the amount of ritual we perform that makes dedication effective. The Buddha taught that the heart of dedication lies not in outward acts, but in the clarity and sincerity of the mind behind them. A mind that is calm, genuine, and filled with gentle compassion naturally radiates light. But a mind clouded by fear, heaviness, or self-centered longing struggles to send forth anything truly bright, no matter how many ceremonies are performed. Dedication begins with a very simple yet profound question. Where is my heart as I am doing this? If the heart is tangled, soaked in sorrow, held tight by grief, then the light you send is dimmed. But if you pause, breathe slowly, place a hand gently over your chest, and lift a quiet blessing from a peaceful place within, then in just that moment, the energy becomes clear. Dedication does not demand elaborate spaces or ornate symbols. All it asks for is a quiet corner, a place where you can rest a photograph, place a flower, or light a candle to remember someone who has passed. What matters most is the moment of stillness, where the heart softens, where gratitude and love arise naturally. In that very breath, dedication begins. At its essence, dedication is the act of offering the wholesome energy we cultivate, kind words, helpful actions, moments of mindfulness, to someone who has left this life. This energy has no form, but it moves deeply. A wholesome heart generates light, and that light can reach places far beyond what our eyes can perceive. This is why what matters most is not the ritual but the state of the heart. It is not the outward form, but the truthfulness within. A person may not know any scriptures or mantras, yet if they live kindly, lend a hand to those in need, speak gently, and practice forgiveness, they themselves become a lantern guiding the departed. In daily life, there are 3 very accessible ways to practice dedication. First, through mindfulness. When you sit quietly for a few minutes each day, when you breathe with gratitude, when you silently wish well without asking for anything in return, you are planting seeds of light. At the end of your practice, simply offer a quiet thought. May this light reach my loved one who has passed. A single sincere thought can carry immeasurable strength. Second, through wholesome actions. Helping someone in difficulty, comforting those who suffer, supporting someone in need, or even something as small as holding a door or offering a warm smile. These are acts of goodness. Genuine virtue arises in ordinary moments, not only in special ones. And when you dedicate such goodness, that energy becomes an invisible gift carried toward the departed. Third, through the very life you are living, when you live more kindly, when you soften anger, when you nurture compassion, when you practice awareness, you kindle a bright flame within. This light naturally spreads, not only to those still here, but also to those who have left. The Buddha taught that when the living cultivate virtue and integrity, their departed loved ones also receive the blessing of that goodness. Along with what we should do, there are things we should refrain from, not out of fear, but out of care for our own hearts and for those who have passed. Deep, prolonged sorrow, endless tears, or calling out a loved one's name in despair create a heavy emotional field. That heaviness can make it difficult for the departed to move on peacefully, as if grief itself were a gentle thread pulling them back. Instead of letting pain overwhelm you, allow your remembrance space to remain soft and simple. A candle, a flower, a moment of silence. These gentle gestures nourish peace within you, and your peace becomes a subtle light that supports the one who has gone. Similarly, objects that carry restless or harmful energy, alcohol, tobacco, or anything that clouds clarity, should not be placed in a remembrance space. Not because the departed receive these things, but because everything you place there reflects the state of your own mind. When the heart is clear, the space becomes clear. When the heart is pure, the dedication becomes pure. When someone dear leaves this world, many wonder, can they feel my love? According to Buddhist teachings, the answer depends on the karmic connection between both hearts. After leaving the body, consciousness becomes very sensitive. If the departed still carries burdens, unresolved emotions, or deep attachment, they can often sense the energy we send. But if they have moved to a brighter state of being or have already taken a new birth, that connection may naturally soften. Yet what matters is not whether they can hear it in the way we imagine. What matters is that genuine love never disappears. It permeates the world in its own quiet way, and nothing can prevent sincere energy from reaching where it needs to go. There are 3 states in which the departed can most easily sense the love of those who remain. The first is when the heart of the living becomes truly calm. A peaceful heart is like a still lake. When you send out a thought of love, the ripple travels far and gently, reaching the consciousness of the one who has gone on. But if your heart is weighed down by sorrow, overwhelmed by longing, or tightly held by grief, the energy becomes heavy, like muddy water that cannot reflect light. Even if the love is sincere, the departed may struggle to receive it because they are still finding their way through their own shadows. The second state is when there is a deep karmic bond between you and the one who has passed. A bond of blood, gratitude, long-standing affection, or unresolved matters that lingered when they were alive. Such connections form an invisible thread that makes your hearts more attuned to each other. When you think of them wholeheartedly, when you send a blessing from deep within, that signal often travels strongly, like a spiritual beacon through the space between 2 realms. The third is when you are engaging in an act of goodness, when you help someone in suffering, comfort someone lost, forgive sincerely, or uphold integrity. The energy of that moment is brighter and more powerful than usual. If you dedicate your goodness right then, the light of your action becomes an offering capable of crossing the boundary between life and death. True merit has the power to transform, and sometimes a single wholesome thought is enough to dissolve layers of obscurity around the consciousness of the departed. For this reason, if you miss someone who has passed, do not hold your longings silently. Let that love become action. Help someone in their honor. Live more kindly for their sake. Let every good thing you do become a quiet tribute carrying your love forward. In the unseen world, kindness never disappears. It simply transforms into light, into warmth, into guidance that travels far beyond what we can imagine. When someone leaves, the weight we feel comes not only from their absence, but from what remained unfinished. Words left unsaid, love that never found its chance, moments of anger that were never mended. Many people carry a lingering guilt. I should have been gentler. I should have reached out more. I shouldn't have let that argument be our last. These regrets pile up like stones on the heart, trapping the living in a sorrow that stretches across years. But the Buddha taught that life is inherently uncertain, and no one lives a life without unfinished chapters. We walk with one another only for a time, and no path lasts forever. If we do not understand this, we bind ourselves to grief, making it harder to move forward. But if we learn to accept impermanence, we begin to see that every encounter is a blessing, every shared moment a gift, and every farewell a gentle reminder to live more deeply. My friend, losing someone you love does not mean losing everything. Sometimes it is life's soft way of reminding you to live wholeheartedly with those who remain and with yourself. Instead of clinging to what has passed, look at this very moment and ask, am I living fully now? The departed do not want you imprisoned by regret. They want you to continue, to be well, so that their departure becomes a quiet turning point that helps you grow. Letting go is not forgetting. Letting go is loving in the right way. It is not indifference. In fact, it requires deep understanding. The understanding that trying to hold someone with tears only binds them with sorrow. Let them go with a blessing. Whisper a thank you for their presence in your life, and live well, kindly, mindfully, wholeheartedly, as if living the part of their journey they could not complete. When you learn to let go, you open a door for your own healing. Healing does not come from pretending nothing happened, but from seeing clearly that birth and death are simply two shores of the same river. The departed have stepped onto another bank, while you remain here to continue your learning. Between those shores, love does not vanish. It only changes its form in time. As the sharper edges of grief soften, as calm returns to your heart, you may realize that love has not left. It has become gratitude. It has become quiet faith. It has become a small, steady light within. And perhaps someday, when your own journey in this life ends, you may encounter them again, not in sorrow or longing, but with two souls matured by the lessons of gain and loss, meeting each other with understanding. May those who have passed find peace on their path. May those who remain learn to understand impermanence and cherish one another fully. And may you, when your time in this world comes to a close, be able to close your eyes with a gentle smile, knowing you lived well and did not waste the precious gift of this human life. There are losses that arrive without warning. One moment, someone you love is still smiling, still speaking, still present beside you like a warm and steady light. And in the next moment, everything collapses. An accident, a sudden illness, or an unforeseen event takes them away, leaving behind a vast and aching emptiness the heart is not prepared to face. In the shock of that loss, many people whisper to themselves, "Why did this happen? Why do gentle, kind-hearted people leave so soon? Why does life feel so cruel?" According to the Buddha's teachings, everything that appears and disappears, life, death, joy, and sorrow, moves according to the natural flow of cause and condition. There is no passing that happens by mistake, and no unseen force that takes the wrong person. Whether peaceful or sudden, death unfolds when the conditions that sustain a life have reached their natural completion. But that does not mean the one who died early was being punished or carried heavy negative karma. Some beings simply come to this world for a brief span, completing the part of their journey meant for this lifetime before continuing on in a gentler, brighter state of existence. In Buddhist wisdom, the timing of one's passing isn't called too early or unfair. It is called timely, with the karmic path unique to each consciousness. What we need is not resentment, but understanding. Every soul has its own spiritual itinerary, and sometimes departure is the beginning of a new step on their inner path. Yet it is true that when someone dies in shock, fear, or confusion, their consciousness may be shaken, like a person waking abruptly in the middle of the night without knowing where they are. Their mind can become disoriented, unsettled, or pulled back by unresolved emotions. In Buddhist thought, this is seen as a transitional space, a state in which the mind has not yet released what was unfinished and can be easily touched by the emotional energy of those still living. When loved ones cling painfully to grief, cry endlessly, or call out the name of the deceased in desperation, that energy can unintentionally make the departed more unsettled. They may feel that heaviness like a fog surrounding them, making it harder to move forward. But if those who remain can hold even a moment of inward calm, that calm becomes a quiet form of guidance, like a steady light reaching across a distance. So when your heart is torn open by loss, the most important thing is not to suppress your emotions or deny your pain. Instead, it is to learn how to breathe softly within it, how to find a steady point inside the storm. Each peaceful breath you take can become a gentle signal, reaching the one who has passed on. Each silent, sincere prayer can become a bridge that helps ease their confusion. Some who pass suddenly may feel lost, as if the path ahead has vanished. In moments like these, the living can help in simple yet profound ways. By remaining grounded, keeping the heart open, acting with kindness, and sending quiet blessings. These acts are not done to pull them back, but to offer them strength light for the road that lies ahead. Ancient teachings often remind us that in times of sudden passing, the mind of the deceased is extraordinarily sensitive to the energy of compassion. This does not mean we must perform elaborate rituals. What matters most is sincerity, a brief moment of stillness, a hand placed gently over your heart, a soft wish for their peace. All of these can become a lantern glowing in the dark. Any act of goodness helping someone in need, comforting a person in pain, protecting a vulnerable creature, or simply offering kindness where it is lacking creates a field of gentle energy within you. And when you dedicate that goodness to the one who has passed, it becomes an offering of light on the path they are now walking. Not every lantern can immediately dispel the darkness, but every lantern matters. Just as water falling drop by drop can wear away stone, sincere dedication offered day after day can gradually cut through the layers of confusion or sorrow surrounding the departed. When compassion flows naturally from your heart, the one who has gone can feel it, not through ears or eyes, but through the subtle resonance of consciousness. In the Buddha's teachings, there is a beautiful image. The mind of the living, when calm and clear, can become a guiding light for the departed. But that light only shines when the living learn to soften their own suffering. If we cling tightly to grief, anger, or despair, our inner light is obscured. Yet when we learn to breathe, to release, and to return to the quiet space within, that light becomes steady and unmistakable. Many people torment themselves with thoughts like, if only I had been there, if only I had apologized sooner, if only I had done more. These thoughts cut deeply. But if we look into the nature of impermanence, we see that no one can control every unfolding moment. Love is not measured by perfection. It is measured by how we continue. Instead of letting sorrow consume you, you can transform it into strength by living more kindly, by being more present with those who remain, by walking through the world with deeper understanding. Each step you take becomes a quiet message to the one who has passed. I am still moving forward, and I want to walk in the most beautiful way I can, living your part as well as mine. If your loved one left in chaos or fear, then your steadiness today can become your gift to them. When you keep your heart bright, their mind may find direction. When you learn to forgive, their burdens may lighten. When you open your heart, they may feel supported. And when you learn to let go, they may finally release what holds them back. No rituals are required. No elaborate ceremonies. What matters is keeping your heart clear, nurturing compassion, and living a life of genuine goodness. Every meaningful action becomes a blessing, not only for you, but also for the one who has stepped into another realm. In this understanding, death is not an ending, but a transition, and love does not vanish. It simply shifts its form from physical closeness to the quiet presence of remembrance, from shared moments to the gentle glow of the good deeds you continue in their honor. There are moments when a person leaves the world so suddenly that their mind has no time to release fear, confusion, or the unfinished pieces of their life. In such a passage, consciousness can feel as though it has been swept into a storm caught between what has ended and what has not yet begun. The shock of that final moment may leave behind a trail of emotional turbulence, unspoken words, unresolved longings, or the instinctive fear that arises when the familiar ground beneath one's feet disappears. In these situations, the support of those still living becomes remarkably meaningful, not through elaborate rites or rigid traditions, but through the quiet strength of compassion cultivated in everyday life. When you continue to live kindly, when you extend generosity, offer understanding, or shelter a vulnerable creature, the energy of those actions radiates naturally. And when you dedicate it to the one who has passed, it becomes a subtle yet powerful form of guidance. Ancient teachings remind us that when a person leaves in shock or confusion, gentle blessings, moments of stillness, and acts of goodness can serve as a source of comfort. These offerings are not attempts to pull them back or interfere with their path. Rather, they are like placing a small candle along a darkened trail, helping them find stability, direction, and peace. Every compassionate act you perform, helping someone through hardship, comforting a troubled heart, choosing kindness in difficult moments, creates a quiet brightness within you. And when that brightness is offered with sincerity to the one who has passed, it becomes part of the light they may follow as their journey continues. Not every light dissolves the darkness at once, yet each light matters, just as a single drop of water, falling repeatedly, can shape stone over time. Repeated offerings of sincere dedication can gradually cut through confusion, fear, or lingering sorrow around the departed. When compassion becomes the natural expression of your heart, the one who has gone can sense it, not in a literal way, but through the subtle, unspoken resonance between connected beings. The Buddha's teachings carry a profound metaphor. The clarity of the living can illuminate the path of the departed. But this clarity appears only when the living learn to soften their own wounds. If we cling tightly to anguish, regret, or despair, our inner light becomes dim. Yet, when we slow our breath, release our grip on pain, and return to the calm within us, that light becomes steady once more. Many people, after losing someone dear, become entangled in a web of regret. If only I had been there. If only I had spoken more gently. If only I had said I love you one more time. These thoughts can weigh heavily on the heart. But when we look deeply into the nature of impermanence, we see that no one can predict every turn of life. Love does not depend on flawless timing. It is expressed through how sincerely we continue onward. Instead of letting grief consume you, you can shape it into a deeper, wiser tenderness. Live with more awareness. Be more present with those who remain. Offer kindness that you once postponed. In doing so, you are quietly telling your loved one, I am still here, walking forward, and I wish to live in a way that honors both your life and mine. If your loved one left the world through chaos or fear, your sense of steadiness today becomes a gift to them. When your heart expands, their path may become clearer. When you learn forgiveness, the burdens they carried may loosen. When you choose compassion, they may sense the warmth of your intention. And when you learn to let go in a healthy and loving way, they may finally release what binds them. No elaborate ceremonies are needed, no ornate offerings. What matters most is the sincerity of your heart, your clarity, your compassion, your willingness to live a life of goodness and awareness. Every meaningful action becomes a blessing that ripples outward, reaching not only the one who has passed, but also healing the one who remains. Through this understanding, we begin to see that death is not a final wall, but a doorway. Love does not vanish when the physical presence disappears. It transforms. It becomes the quiet strength behind your choices, the gentle glow in your acts of kindness, the depth in your understanding of life. And when you look back someday, after the storms of grief have softened, you may find that you have grown more open, more compassionate, more deeply alive. You may recognize that your presence, your awareness, your light has been your offering to the one who departed. It is then that you understand the way you live today becomes the guiding lantern for the one who has gone ahead. There are moments in life when everything suddenly slows down and we feel a gentle stillness settling in our heart. In those quiet spaces, we may think about the people who once walked beside us, but are no longer here. And in that stillness, we naturally wonder, what truly remains after someone we love has gone? Perhaps the answer is not found in rituals or doctrines, but in the soft, steady presence of our own awareness. Every life ends, yet the influence of a life never disappears. The teachings of the Buddha remind us that human existence is both fragile and precious. He spoke of a truth that can feel startling when we pause long enough to recognize it. Life is held in a single breath. One breath in, one breath out. That is the interval in which our entire world exists. Understanding this is not meant to frighten us. It is meant to awaken us. We spend so much of our lives believing we will always have more time, more years, more chances, more moments to make things right. But the truth of impermanence asks us to look at life differently. It asks us to reconsider what truly matters and to recognize that nothing, no emotion, no possession, no relationship stays the same forever. Yet this realization, if embraced gently, brings not despair but clarity. When we understand impermanence, we begin to see the extraordinary value of the present moment. We start to notice the weight of our words, the tone of our thoughts, the choices we make when no one is watching. We understand that every moment we are alive is an opportunity to plant seeds of kindness, to soften what is rigid in us, and to loosen the knots we have carried for too long. There was once a man nearing the end of his life. He had spent decades building wealth, reputation, success, everything he believed would bring him fulfillment. But as he lay on his hospital bed, fragile and exhausted, he did not think about the things he had gained. Instead, with tears trembling in his eyes, he whispered, "I would give it all away just to live long enough to say I'm sorry to my family." In that moment, the truth became painfully clear to him. A life filled with achievements is still empty if it lacks love, presence, and understanding. Impermanence is a mirror that reflects back to us what we too often ignore. It shows us that while we cannot control how long we live, we absolutely can choose how we live, whether we cling or let go, whether we harden or soften, whether we sleepwalk through our days or live them fully awake. And sometimes the most powerful lessons come from the simplest encounters. There was an elderly woman well into her 80s who began each morning in quiet contemplation. Her body was frail, her steps unsteady, yet she never allowed a day to pass without sitting for a few minutes in stillness. Someone once asked her, "At your age, what is the point of spiritual practice?" She smiled, her eyes warm with a calm that seemed to shine from within, and said, "I don't practice to gain anything. I practice so I don't carry anything unnecessary when it's time to go." Her words held a depth that touched everyone who heard them. They were not spoken from theory, but from a lifetime of observation. In her simple way, she captured the essence of letting go, the art of releasing fears, regrets, and attachments before they weigh down the heart. Her wisdom reminds us that we do not practice mindfulness or compassion to become perfect. We practice so that when life asks us to release our grasp, our hands and our hearts are already prepared. To live with awareness is not to escape the world. It is to walk through it with open eyes. To live with compassion is not to ignore suffering. It is to meet it with a soft and steady heart. To live with understanding is not to avoid impermanence. It is to see it clearly and embrace life more fully because of it. And perhaps this is the greatest gift of all, knowing that every moment is new, every breath is a beginning, and every act of kindness is a way of offering light into a world that is always changing. From the story of that elderly woman, we begin to understand that spiritual practice, or simply living with awareness, does not start when we grow old, when our bodies weaken, or when life begins to slip away. It begins here, in this very moment, in the small choices we make each day. Some people believe that spiritual growth requires being in a sacred place, surrounded by rituals or silence. But true practice reveals itself quietly, in the ordinary rhythms of life. It appears in the way we speak to one another, in how we respond when things don't go our way, and in how we choose peace over chaos, even when everything around us feels overwhelming. When we recognize that impermanence is the nature of all things, we stop wasting time on resentment and needless conflict. We no longer chase after what inevitably slips through our fingers. Instead, we learn to care for our own inner world, to nurture peace within ourselves, as though protecting a small flame from the wind. And the more deeply we look, the more we realize that life is not a long stretch of time, but a collection of fleeting moments. When we truly see this, every moment becomes precious. There are days when life feels rushed, when we move so quickly that we forget we are even living. We wake up, rush into tasks, face pressure, confront difficulties, and collapse at the end of it all exhausted and disconnected. It's as if time is pushing us forward faster than we can breathe. But when we come back to our breath, when we return to our own presence, we discover something gentle but powerful. Life is asking us to slow down, to feel, to be here. In those moments when we truly listen to our own heart, when we smile at our imperfections, when we appreciate what we have rather than what we lack, we begin to taste the sweetness of being alive. This awareness becomes even more essential when we face the great turning points of life, especially the loss of someone we love. Such loss can shake the very ground beneath us. Yet the teachings on impermanence illuminate even that darkness. They remind us that impermanence is not a threat. It is an invitation to love more deeply while we still can. Impermanence teaches us not to wait to express our gratitude, not to hold back words of kindness, not to cling to small hurts, and not to postpone the act of living fully. Life takes nothing from us without offering a lesson in return. The departure of someone dear may leave an ache in the heart, but it can also awaken a greater appreciation for those who remain and for the time we still have. It urges us to live more meaningfully and to be more present. And with steady practice, impermanence begins to reveal itself not as a warning, but as a gift. Because everything changes, we can begin again. We can soften our hearts, loosen our grip, and release what no longer serves us. We can rediscover joy, love, and resilience in ways we never imagined. If everything were permanent, we would never grow. If nothing ever faded, we would never learn compassion. If we never lost anything, we would never understand the value of what we have. And because life is so brief, the most beautiful thing we can offer is a life lived with intention, so that when the final moment arrives, we can meet it with a gentle smile, a smile born not of victory or possession, but of completeness, a smile that says, I loved as fully as I could. I forgave more than I resented. I let go of what weighed down my heart. I did not waste the precious time I was given. When our eyes close for the last time, we carry nothing with us except the state of our own mind, a mind shaped by kindness, clarity, and understanding. That is the only companion that follows us beyond this life. And as we journey through this truth, we hear again the timeless teaching. To understand impermanence is to understand life. This is not merely philosophy. It is a gentle reminder to walk more lightly, to love more sincerely, and to live each moment with awareness. Someone once asked, how do I stop fearing death? The answer is simple, yet profound. Live well while you are still alive. When we live fully with intention, compassion, and presence, death is no longer a dark doorway. It becomes a transition, a continuation, a natural part of the path. And through this reflection, we discover the heart of the teaching. The most precious thing we possess is this moment, breathing with us right now. Every morning we open our eyes. We are given another chance to love better, to understand deeper, and to begin again. From the beginning of human history, people have carried within themselves a powerful longing to reach for something bigger, something more. Desire has always been like a restless current inside the human heart. When we live in scarcity, we dream of abundance. Once we have abundance, we crave comfort. When comfort arrives, we begin to want recognition, influence, and even a sense of permanence, as if we could somehow stop time with our achievements. The mind easily falls into this endless pursuit. It tells us that happiness lies just beyond the next milestone, one more accomplishment, one more possession, one more victory. Yet whenever we finally touch what we once longed for, another desire quietly appears in its place. And so we keep running, believing fulfillment is just one step further, only to find that the horizon keeps moving away from us. Desire is like a bottomless well. The more we pour into it, the more empty it feels. A person without a home dreams of shelter. A person with a home dreams of a bigger one. A person with plenty dreams of even more, hoping that more will calm the restlessness inside. But the fullness we seek does not lie in possessions. It lies in the heart. Someone who knows how to feel enough, even while living simply, may be far happier than someone wealthy, but perpetually anxious. A modest meal eaten with gratitude is sweeter than a feast consumed in worry. A heart that is light carries more wealth than a house full of treasures. Yet human suffering is not born solely from desire. Much of it comes from attachment, from holding on too tightly to what was meant to pass. Our hearts are quick to cling to hurts, misunderstandings, and disappointments that were never meant to stay with us so long. We suffer because of a careless remark. We hurt because of a misunderstanding that could have been resolved. We torment ourselves over memories that belong to a past we cannot rewrite. We worry over a future that hasn't yet arrived, In this way, we trap ourselves in layers of unnecessary sorrow, forgetting that everything, every emotion, every circumstance is as fleeting as clouds drifting across a wide sky. They gather, they disperse, they come, they go. Nothing in this world belongs to us permanently, not even the moments of joy or sadness we cling to so tightly. When we hold on to the past, we're trying to grasp a shadow that no longer exists. It's like attempting to cup running water in our hands. The more we try, the quicker it slips away. No matter how deeply we wish to revisit what has already happened, the past remains a closed door, silent and unmoving. And the future is a door that has not yet opened. We can imagine, predict, fear, and hope, but none of our anxieties can force that door to open before its time. We often exhaust ourselves by worrying about possibilities that may never unfold. It is like worrying about a seed still beneath the soil. No amount of fear or impatience will make it sprout sooner than it can. Between these two doors, the past that has closed and the future that has not yet begun, only the present moment is truly alive. Only this moment is real. Only this moment has the power to heal. Yet we spend much of our lives overlooking it. We sacrifice the peace of today for the worries of tomorrow. We allow the pain of yesterday to steal the joy of now. We cling to what should have been released, and we fear what has not yet arrived. If we could simply pause, really pause, and take one conscious breath, returning our awareness to the here and the now, we would discover that much of our suffering comes from the mind's endless grasping. The situation itself is rarely as heavy as the story we build around it. The wound is often not as deep as the persistence with which we reopen it. What Buddhism calls attachment, modern psychology calls overthinking. Different words, same truth. We create much of our suffering from within. But when we begin to let go, even just a little, something inside us softens. A small window opens, allowing light to enter. And with that light, the shadows that once overwhelmed us begin to retreat. Letting go does not mean indifference. Letting go does not mean giving up. Letting go means putting down what is too heavy for the heart to carry any longer. It means giving ourselves permission to breathe again, to live again, to feel again. For only when the heart is light can the spirit walk freely. Only when the mind is spacious can compassion bloom. And only when we stop gripping the past can we open our hands to the blessings of the present. When we understand this, we naturally begin to slow down, to look inward, and to rediscover a peace that has been waiting for us all along, not outside, not in the world, but quietly within ourselves. When we truly understand that every feeling and every thought is like a passing wave, we begin to touch a deeper truth. Every encounter, every beginning, and every separation in life arises from conditions coming together and dissolving. Everything we hold in our hands today, relationships, achievements, possessions, status, all of it is only here because the conditions for it exist in this moment. When the conditions are right, people come into our lives. When those conditions fade, they quietly drift away, not because someone failed, not because someone didn't try, but simply because the current of life has shifted direction. If we can see this clearly, we stop blaming, regretting, or clinging to what is already changing. When the time of a connection has ended, the more tightly we hold on, the more we suffer. The more we resist the truth of change, the heavier our hearts become. There are people who once entered our lives like sunlight, warm, tender, bright, yet eventually drifted away like clouds across a vast sky. We cannot blame spring for the flowers that fall, nor blame autumn for leaves that turn golden. The nature of life is change, and its changes are teachers in disguise, reminding us how to release our grip. Letting go does not mean forgetting or abandoning what we once cherished. Letting go means not forcing reality to stay still. It means allowing ourselves and others to move with life rather than fight against it. It means understanding that even the most meaningful relationships have their own life cycles. Much of human suffering comes from two small words: mine and my person, my success, my pain, my pride, my happiness. But nothing we cling to is truly ours forever. People who once loved each other deeply may one day part ways. Wealth that once seemed stable may vanish in a moment. Even things we believe are unshakable can shift overnight. When we cling too tightly, we become like someone holding on to a wilted flower, mourning its decay, not realizing that outside the window, a whole field of new blossoms is waiting. Our sadness comes not from the flower's end, but from our refusal to release it. The past is a shadow that has already walked away. The future is a path that has not yet appeared. Only the present moment carries the pulse of life. Yet we often lose ourselves between these two worlds. We mourn the past, we fear the future, and we forget to live the moment in front of us. Letting go is an art of the heart, a gentle skill refined over time. It is not a single decision, but a continual practice. Today we release one small burden. Tomorrow we release another. Gradually the heart becomes lighter, softer, more free. And this freedom comes not from having more, but from carrying less. Fewer expectations, fewer fears, fewer tangled attachments. A person with little but a spacious heart is far happier than someone with much, but a mind crowded with restlessness. To know enough to feel content with what we already have is one of the greatest gifts we can offer ourselves. Contentment does not mean giving up or shrinking from life. It means appreciating what is here without letting endless wanting steal our peace. When we cultivate this sense of enough, our meals taste richer, our steps feel lighter, and each morning becomes a blessing. True peace is not created by perfect circumstances, but by a heart no longer overwhelmed by desire or fear. When we live with a sense of sufficiency, gratitude naturally blooms, and life becomes gentle again. Yet there is another key that allows us to let go more deeply: compassion. When our hearts are filled with compassion, we no longer cling to old wounds or carry resentment. We begin to understand that forgiveness is not only for the one who hurt us, it is a profound liberation for ourselves as well. A person who holds on to hatred is a person trapping themselves in darkness. A person who forgives is someone opening a door to the light. Letting go is not an idea, it is a practice. Each day we can look within and notice one thing we no longer need to hold. Each day we can allow ourselves to release a little more. Slowly, the heart expands. Gradually, peace returns. And one day we realize that tranquility has been present all along, waiting quietly for us to unburden ourselves enough to feel it. Letting go in the spirit of the Buddha's teachings, does not mean becoming indifferent or cold toward life. It is not a withdrawal from the world, nor is it a refusal to feel. Letting go simply means learning how to live in this world without allowing the heart to be chained by worries, fears, painful memories, or expectations that exceed what life can realistically offer. We suffer because we cling. We cling to possessions, to success, to relationships, to past joys and past wounds. We cling to imagined futures, to what we wish life would be. These attachments become invisible ropes, tight, silent, and heavy, pulling our hearts into restlessness day after day. And with each passing moment, the fear of losing what we cling to makes our mind grow more troubled and our inner world more unstable. The Buddha taught that to truly find peace, the first step is to let go, to release the weight of excessive desire, to set down the burden of old anger, to dissolve the fog of confusion that clouds our understanding. When we let go of craving, when we soften anger, when we loosen ignorance, the heart becomes free, and a free heart is naturally steady, like a clear sky untouched by storm clouds. To let go, we must look deeply into the nature of things. Everything in this world exists because conditions allow it to exist. When those conditions fade, whatever was supported by them also fades. Nothing we possess, nothing we love, nothing we build is truly permanent. Like a passing cloud or flowing river, life gathers and scatters without stopping. When this truth sinks in, clinging loses its power. Sorrow loosens, fear softens. We begin to understand that loss is not punishment. It is simply part of the rhythm of life. Seeing impermanence clearly helps us relax our grip on everything we once believed we had to hold on to forever. In life, we often suffer because we want more than what we already have. When we achieve one thing, we immediately chase another. When one desire is met, another arises. This endless cycle exhausts the heart and steals the peace within us. Contentment, knowing what is enough, does not mean giving up or refusing to grow. It means appreciating the present moment, valuing what is here, and not letting the mind be consumed by endless wanting. When we know what is enough, we return home to ourselves. A key part of letting go is cultivating compassion. When compassion fills the heart, there is no room left for resentment, bitterness, or old wounds to fester. Holding on to anger is like grasping a burning coal. We burn ourselves long before we ever harm the person who hurt us. Forgiveness then becomes an act of liberation. Not necessarily because the other person deserves it, but because your heart deserves peace. When we learn to forgive, we free not only others but also ourselves. Letting go is not something achieved in a single day. It is a quiet practice, a gentle discipline cultivated over time. Each day we look into ourselves and notice what we are gripping too tightly: a fear, a memory, a longing, an expectation, and little by little we release them. One layer at a time, the heart becomes lighter. Eventually, a moment arrives when we understand that peacefulness was always there. Our inner sky had always been clear. It was only hidden behind the clouds of fear, desire, and doubt. When we let go, the clouds part, and what remains is the calm and clarity that had been waiting all along. Life, in truth, is a temporary resting place for the soul. a pause in an endless journey. Like drifting clouds or water flowing down a quiet stream, everything we hold today may slip away tomorrow. What we imagine as mine is only borrowed for a time. Clinging brings suffering, releasing brings ease. Only when we understand the impermanence of all things can we walk through life with a peaceful heart. So let your heart open wide, gentle, unguarded. Welcome whatever comes and bow to whatever goes. When joy visits, smile with gratitude. When it departs, let it leave in peace. Do not let anger or worry obscure the brightness inside you. I hope that as you listen to these words, a small, soft space opens within you. A space where you can breathe more deeply and rest more fully. Live like a flower blooming quietly in the world, offering fragrance without demanding anything, standing gently even when the wind blows, living fully and letting go gracefully. When the mind is no longer tangled in needless worries, when we know how to release what burdens us, that is when we touch true happiness, a happiness that does not depend on circumstances, approval, or success. The Buddha reminded us that everything is impermanent. To be born as a human being is already a rare blessing. To encounter teachings that reveal the path to peace is an even greater fortune. So do not let your life pass by in forgetfulness. Live each day with intention, clarity, and kindness. And when the final moment of this life arrives, may you be able to smile knowing that you lived wholeheartedly, sincerely, and without regret. May you be peaceful. May your heart be light. May wisdom continue to grow within you, guiding each step you take on this long and beautiful journey.